What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllNBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler, a.k.a. the singular GOAT of NBA media analysis.
It's just another goat in a field of goats. That's all I am, man.
No way, man. No way. We're on a delay. Go ahead.
Good response last night from the Knicks, huh? I mean, they were impressive last night. I think that's the most impressive game they played maybe in the entire playoffs.
It really was, man. They looked completely in control from opening tip to final buzzer. So we're going to spend almost all of the show today talking about that one, because what else is going on in the NBA? I do have some quick hitters, though, at the very end of the show that I want to get to. Just some general NBA questions that I've wondered for a long time, and I thought now is a good time to ask them about roster construction, personality of team, how organizations are structured. So we'll get to that on the other side, but we're going to start with the Knicks dominating the Pacers. They won the first quarter, the second quarter, the third quarter, and the fourth quarter. Actually, they tied the fourth quarter of this one, but it was largely garbage time. So how did they do it, Legs? What was different about this game that showed the Knicks controlling from start to finish?
Well, I'll get to Brunson in a second, because that would be chronologically, it would start with Brunson, the way he started the game. But I actually think the overall theme was that the New York Knicks decided that they're bigger and stronger. That's their advantage, right? The Pacers' advantage is they're faster, their tempo, the more shooting. So they need to play more freedom of movement, up the floor quicker, and use their speed to differentiate themselves. For the Knicks, it's size and power and ability to get to the line. And it was clear to me their intent, because just about every single guy that caught the ball in the first half put their head down and went straight to the rim. And I'll start with Karl-Anthony Towns, because I thought it was actually one of his best games. He ended up taking 4 threes, but he took 2 of those later in the game. He only took 2 through about maybe the first 2.5 to 3 quarters. And everything he did was just, especially against Siakam or Turner, if he got those guys squared up on the perimeter, he just picked a direction and went, and it was typically to his right hand. And I know he likes to go left, and he finishes well going left. They were shading him a little bit the other way, and he just put his head down and went straight through contact to the rim. By my count, 5 or 6 layups he had in the first half, a couple of and ones, got fouled a couple other times, had a post up and a putback. That was all in the first half. He had a 17.10 rebound game going at halftime, and I thought it was not just him. It was Anunoby did it. Josh Hart did it. You know, Brunson did it to a certain extent, but not so much to the rim, but more like just working you into his spots and then stepping away and shooting that little jump shot. So even he got where he wanted to, but it was the rest of those guys, Adam. This was just straight up one-on-one at the point of attack, beating you downhill, picking your direction, and going all the way until I'm stopped. And the Pacers didn't do a very good job of sliding in, of throwing an extra body in there, maybe giving yourself up, taking a charge. There was nobody to be found. If you beat your guy, you split that first gap. A lot of guys were reaching in from the perimeter, and they were playing right through it all the way to the rim. And I think that probably is the best defense you can have against the Pacers. Force them to defend the paint. Force 4 guys, 5 guys in the lane. Force them to be taking the ball out of bounds in that situation. It's just much harder for them to run when you're not shooting a lot of threes. You're not turning the ball over a ton. And I thought, for me, the approach was great. It was physical. It was dominant. And it sent a real message to the Pacers that, like, this is our advantage, and we're going to play to it tonight, hell or high water. They ended up with 60 points in the paint, and they had another 15 free throws. So really, if you think about it, that's 75 points from the blue area of the floor, which is a very small area, relative to the rest of your half court offensively. 75 points in the lane or at the line. That's the game. To me, that is the game because it completely took away the Pacers' ability to run and get flow.
Well, I love the point you made there about him going to his right, because you are right that I think he loves going to his left on drives if he's going to drive. And a lot of what the Pacers are trying to do with him throughout the series is force him to his left side, shrink the floor, crowd it. And I think throughout the series, there's been times where he's not reading the floor. He gets the ball and he'll go straight into his left-handed drive into traffic. It becomes a steal or a bad shot or whatever. And now the Pacers are the other way. This one, in this game, they're doing the exact same thing. They're sitting on him. If they watch him guard, they're sitting on his right hand a lot. Like just telling him, you can't go left, you can't go right. But he didn't take the bait this time. I thought he did a great job of rip through, and then he'll take like one dribble and almost carry it like a football player. You know, like he picks it up. He has those long strides and he just gets past it and says, and I think realizes if he does that, there's not going to be bodies to meet him. And the Pacers aren't necessarily great at that part of defense. And so he was able to hammer it home. I agree with you. I think Brunson was incredible. There's some stuff the Pacers did, but it was Towns going right, getting to the rim, and just taking it like a fullback to the basket that I thought was the difference.
Yeah, and a lot of those were against Siakam, and a couple of them Turner was out of the game, so there was no Siakam was the big. They brought in Jarris Walker a little bit, who's about Siakam's size, so they really didn't have a real legitimate rim protector on the floor. I think Towns took advantage of that, but even when he went against Turner, did the same thing. But for Siakam especially, and I did a touchscreen on this last night after the game. Siakam was like Towns would catch it at like 20 feet. And number one, there was 2 or 3 opportunities where he drove on him where he could have denied him the ball when he flashed to get it. He just literally went from the block right up the lane to the top of the key, turned, caught the ball. And Siakam was like 5-6 feet trailing behind, almost like a drill you do. It's like a one-on-one drill where you flip the ball to the guy and guard him. I'm like Siakam could have denied the pass. And then maybe Towns has to go further out to the perimeter, but whatever. That's a whole other thing. I think there'll be more physical and denials on him the next game, but they let him catch it kind of easily. Now Siakam, he loves to like get in his stance, and he's constantly reaching and poking out toward the ball. And I thought Towns was timing it up perfectly. Just as Siakam would reach, Towns would take the ball and he did this big like swim move over the top because he's not going to get lower than Siakam. He's too big and he's heavy. He's not going to swing it down low like you would teach a player to do. If you can get low, you're usually quicker. Towns is like, okay, if you're gonna lean forward and take your arm and extend it out toward my chest, I'm gonna take the ball and I'm gonna go over the top of your hand. And then that first step, he was putting his shoulder like right into Siakam's lead shoulder, and he was like overpowering him. So now Siakam's like riding his hip to the rim. Too late then. And one of the plays I diagrammed last night on the touchscreen was a play where Mathurin is on the block because the guy he's guarding is not even out at the 3-point line. He's like in the weird, like kind of a weird wing area, like not spaced properly. I don't remember who the player was. Mathurin's standing on the block. He's looking right at Towns, who beats Siakam, and he's barreling right toward him. And we all know if Karl-Anthony Towns takes his first dribble and he's going that hard to the rim, I got news for you. He's not passing the ball. Ever. I've never seen Karl-Anthony Towns make a pass once he makes up his mind on a hard drive. And there's Mathurin, and Mathurin's waiting on him. And as he gets closer, he kind of steps to the side and he swipes at him. And Towns ends up getting into Siakam a 3-point play layup. And I was kind of like, well, man, it says a lot. Like I guarantee you, Josh Hart would have probably taken that charge, right? Anunoby probably would have taken that charge, and Nesmith would have definitely taken that charge. Some other guys, right? But Mathurin didn't want to. Maybe some other guys wouldn't want to. But to me, if they're going to play that way in Game 6, you've got to be much more cognizant of being the guy to step in on Towns when he beats somebody from the top of the key, because he's not going to pass it off the dribble out to the corner for a 3-point shot. That's just not in his arsenal. He's going to the rim for a reason. I thought Indiana did not close up those gaps enough, and Towns took advantage of every single one of them, and he dominated them physically in the first half.
Your point, though, about how Towns can be a guy where once he makes up his mind, you can pretty much read what he's going to do. That's an important one because to me, he is the X factor in this series. So like when he
Oh
can
yeah.
dominate like that, then okay, the Knicks have the upper hand. These two teams are pretty close, I think, in terms of talent. They're different styles. That's what makes it interesting. But it's not like the Pacers should just run away with this. Towns can push this in the other direction, but to your point, they didn't force that out of him in this game. He did have
Right.
4 turnovers, but once he made up his mind, it was almost like he had a runway. And that'll be one of the interesting battlegrounds in the next one is, okay, Towns has to be aggressive. He has to go to the rim. Can you make him make bad decisions? Can you force that out of him in game 6 to me is something I'll be watching for.
There's no doubt about it, man. You got to force him to do something that's out of his comfort zone, and passing the ball off the dribble, if he
You're
sees
right.
traffic in front of him, is just not his strength. It's not a knock on him. He's a big dude. He's a 6'11". He shoots threes. He's skilled, but he's a power player too. And I loved this version of Karl Anthony Towns. This reminded me of the Karl Anthony Towns at Kentucky. Like, he was housing dudes. And I know the NBA is different level, right? Bigger guys, stronger, better defender. And he added the 3-point shot to his game. Good. That's great. But those nights when there's an imbalance there with the jump shots and he's more of a perimeter based player, he's taking away what you saw last night, which is this, because he's really good for a guy that big to pick a direction, even when he does go left to try to finish at the rim. He's got this little thing he does when he goes left, where he goes one dribble, maybe two, picks it up, and then he gets contact. He does this little lean back right-handed shot, like going left off the glass, and it's so soft. Last night, same thing. Couple of those 3-point plays, it wasn't like he was laying it at the rim. He was kind of shooting a 6-foot shot, like up off the glass with contact. So his ability, even for a guy that big, to have touch when he's barreling toward the rim is really special. And last night, I just thought it's one of my favorite games I think I've seen the guy play, maybe ever, because of the circumstances of the game and what he decided to do. I'm bigger than you. Do something about it. And the Pacers didn't. And Karl Anthony Towns had his way. And now you look at it, and there's no question the Knicks are going to try to do it again in games. If they don't, they're foolish. I mean, they took 29 threes. I don't know how many they took in the fourth quarter. I didn't look it up. But they were in the low 20s going into the fourth quarter in threes. Think about that. So you had 36 more points in the paint than you had from the 3-point line. That does not happen a whole lot in this league. A 36-point discrepancy. The Knicks, give them credit, man. They came out, and then in a second we'll talk about Brunson, but I'll just get your thoughts on what I just said. They came out with the right approach, man. There was right level of desperation there. You could feel it defensively, but I don't think it was their defense. I think their offense, the way that they played, really stifled Indiana's ability to be themselves because they were under assault. And Karl Anthony Towns was the main culprit.
Well, what I think about what you just said, because I think part of this game comes down to, it's the cliche, but who was the more desperate team? In this one, it was clearly the Knicks, both because they're down in the series 3-1. But you don't always have to be that. Sometimes the team up 3-1 comes with that level of urgency. The Knicks hit first, and the Pacers never really recovered from it. There was never a matching of intensity, energy, or execution, and that's what led to 20 turnovers, which we'll get to in a bit. So to me, it was a classic story of the more desperate team brought the energy, and the team ahead in the series wasn't able to match it. But let's move to Jalen Brunson. 12 of 18, 4 of 7 from 3, 32 points. Legs, I have some crazy stats for you here. Only 13 players have ever averaged 30 points per game in a playoffs of at least 15 games. So it's not like first round only. At least 15 games have averaged 30. Michael Jordan 8 times. LeBron 4 times. Jerry West 3 times. Kareem 2 times. Kobe and Shaq 2 times apiece. Iverson, Giannis, Hakeem, Kawhi, Luka, Jokic, Rick Barry. Who's the worst player on that list? That's all of your top 12 players or so of all time.
That's an incredible list, man.
And now add Jalen Brunson after last night's game. He's now averaging 30 points per game in the playoffs.
Look at you digging up this golden nugget, man.
Hey, this is my guy AOP. I got to shout him out. He's the one that gave.
You got to shout people out that hit you up with this stuff. That's a good one, man. And guess who's gonna steal that my next Sports Center hit. But I probably won't be able to credit him because he doesn't work for us, so I don't think I'll be able to do that. No, let's look, man. A guy came out, had their first 6 points. It was 6-0. He had nothing else on his mind other than getting to his spot and shooting the basketball. And the reason I think that it was important, and I'll contrast it with kind of what we saw to Anthony Edwards. Like in 2 games in that series, you especially in the elimination game, like your team is down 3-1 last night at home. There's a lot of pressure in that building, a lot of tension. People are waiting to see how's this going to go. The Pacers have them kind of unnerved because of what happened in the first 2 games, right? And now what they did the other night, and then Haliburton's coming in. That was one of the greatest games any point guard's ever had in the playoffs. And so they're a little bit on edge there. Celebrity row, a little quiet at the beginning of the game. Brunson comes out. It's like bang, bang, bang. First 3 times he gets it. He gets to a spot and scores on a guy one-on-one. Didn't need any help. No ball screens, no nothing. Give me the ball and let me go on these guys. I thought, and I think he had 12 points or 14 in the first quarter. I thought that was a statement for his team. And it calmed everybody down. It got the crowd into it early. They were like, oh, okay, man, our guy's good to go. Like, we're going to be okay if he looks like that early in the game. And so I just thought his approach was fantastic. It set up what I talked about, took place over like the last 18 minutes of the first half, but the first 6 minutes belonged to Jalen Brunson. And then the power basketball kicked in after that. But I think it's a great when your best player comes out and just goes, guys, I got this. Just watch. This is what I have in store for these guys tonight. Everybody kind of relaxes after that, man. And it was a really important thing to do in a pressure-packed environment.
Yeah. The other thing about Brunson is he did it with everything. So there was obviously the ISO game that he plays. He was very effective at it in this game. But according to Second Spectrum, he had 12 picks with Mitchell Robinson, 11 with Mikal Bridges, 7 with Karl Anthony Towns. He scored the same 1.3, 1.4 points per possession on every single one of those. So it wasn't like a lot of times you'll see it. They keep going to this action or whatever, and teams have to adjust and throw different coverages. No matter what combo they put, hard screen and slip, whatever it was, he had it working with all of their teams. So he was in his wheelhouse. That's why he only missed 5 shots in the entire game.
You know what I wonder about people? I wonder about people, Adam, that, and I haven't done it. You haven't done it. This free throw baiting stuff. We know it exists. We know certain guys are better at drawing them than others. They over exaggerate it. It annoys people. What do you say to guys what do you say to guys or about guys on nights when they have 4 free throw attempts and they get 32 points?
I love it
efficiently.
Yeah, I love it. You know what? We got to shout it out.
What do you say now? It wasn't part of the narrative at all. He took 4 free throws in the whole game, and he was 12 for 18 from the field, man, in about as much of a pressure as you can have on a guy to win that home game. In front of your home crowd, to extend the series, give me another chance to fight. Comes out, the guy goes 12 for 18 with 4 free throws. So, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you want to use that narrative on a given night, go ahead. But, like, you better be ready to pat these guys on the back on the nights they don't need the foul line to dominate. And he didn't need it last night because his shot looks so certain early, especially his very first shot. He was one-on-one. He drove to the right baseline. I think it was Neesmith, hit him with a shoulder, went to his little step back on the right baseline, fadeaway 18-footer. There was no doubt whatsoever. And like his first 3 or 4 shots, couple threes he hit were so on balance, went up, held his follow through, like you knew, man. And so, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because these guys like Shea and him, Luka, like whoever you want to pull up, what do you say on the nights when they don't need that stuff and they still get 32 points efficiently? So, it's like the argument's kind of out the window last night because he didn't need that part of his game. They went with a different style, man. And I just thought Indiana, it's amazing that there can be that big of a contrast from one game to the next. Yeah, not just for Indiana, but particularly Tyrese Haliburton. Like, it's incredible that those are the bookends for you in this series. Those 2 games. Those are the bookends, right? That's the floor and the ceiling. You just watched it back to back. So you want to dive in on Indiana now? What did you think about them?
And of course, it does start with Tyrese Haliburton because he clearly didn't have it. Only 7 field goal attempts in this game, which is kind of crazy. That just shows you the level, both the lack of aggression, on Haliburton's part. The incredible defense. They did pressure him. We talked about, do they have the guys to pressure him? They did in this game. I mean, it wasn't full court, picking him up, turning him a million times, but it was meeting him a little bit higher and just trying to wear him down. So 7 field goal attempts. And then the big number, 20 turnovers for the Pacers as a team. This is a layered thing. Because one, they don't turn the ball over, and to get through the series, they're not going to have to. But we're talking, I mean, we didn't want to go too far ahead of ourselves, but if you get to the next round, you're playing the number 1 turnover team, of the last 10 years. But that to me, Haliburton, his lack of aggressiveness and then his sloppiness with the basketball, not getting him organized, to me was maybe the biggest factor alongside Towns.
All right, I'm going to go with Holden 92 in the chat. I don't know why Haliburton has these games where he plays with zero aggression. I could not possibly agree with you more. Everybody today is, and look, the Knicks do deserve, they played hard. They played smarter. They played harder defensively. They just did, man. They looked hungry. You can't change your personnel overnight. You can't convince me in watching that film that this was all of a sudden they turned into OKC or the Bad Boys Pistons or whatever, and they're pressuring Haliburton 80 feet up the floor. That's not what was going on. So don't kid yourself. They were definitely better fighting over ball screens 35, 40 feet out, because he was getting that little brush screen in Indianapolis, and with all this freedom of movement, because they were either going under or they were laying on the screen. They were handing them off to somebody else, and he got into this freedom of movement thing that he loves, and he will destroy you if you let him play like that. So I will say, and I even pointed one of these out on SVP last night, Miles McBride was the guy I use as an example. He did it twice on the same possession, 35 feet out. He fought over the top of the screen. It stayed with him, so he didn't put the help defender in a compromised position where now the ball starts moving all over the place. They were better in that regard. Don't act like this was something where their pressure rattled Tyrese Haliburton. Haliburton, biggest enemy last night was his own approach. And the reason I think that he did it, I think he had almost an over-analyzation, an overreaction to all that praise he got for 48 hours. And like, oh, I know they're not going to let me do that again. So what do they have in store for me? Because he wasn't even looking to take advantage of space like when he did have it. It's not like they were jamming him up all night, man, and putting an elbow in his chest in the backcourt and denying him outlet passes and turning him 4 times before half court. No, that's the stuff he would see next round. Right. That's what he's going to see in the next round. So I'm just saying, I saw it a little bit differently. I'm not saying we don't give the Knicks some love, but I've already said it. Their offense was their best defense in this game. The way that they pounded them in the paint, it was a barrage. It put them back on their heels, and it didn't let them get out and run and get freedom of space. But I think the majority of the rest of it was between Tyrese Haliburton's ears. So Holden 92 asks the question. I don't have an answer, but I do know this. I've criticized him for it before. I've said his floor is too low on the nights he plays like this for a star player.
Right.
You can't be not noticed if you're a star. You can't be not noticed if you just had a 30-point, 15 assist, 0 turnover game that people were, and myself included, were saying it's one of the greatest games I've ever seen a point guard play in the playoffs. You can't then be not noticed for 48 minutes. So a lot of this is him. And I don't know what exactly was going through his head or why he was so unaggressive. I don't know. And guess what, though? He called himself out after game 3. He responded in game 4. There's no doubt he's going to look at this and be embarrassed by the way he played last night. Let's see what his response is going to be in game 6.
I think cerebral players who use craft, they can fall into that trap, but you have to almost overcome it, where you enter a game thinking, I have to think this through. Let me read what's going on. And that is true. That is part of the game, is reading it and seeing what happens. But there's this other part that is attacking them. Like, put the pressure on them to react, not you react and see what they're doing and then go there.
Very good.
Put the pressure on
exactly
them.
A great way to put it, Adam. That's the best way to describe it, what you just said, man.
And I think that's what it is with a guy like Haliburton and why he can go back and forth between looking phenomenal and not. Last game, he was in flow. It just was like he was on the prowl. Every time he got the ball, he was on the prowl and attacking. And in this one, it kind of looked like he was reading everything.
Well, all right. So I want to along these lines, this conversation came up last night with a group of people watching the game. the word superstar, I don't throw that word around. It's tough to get that word out of me. There are some in the league, and there's some certainly over the last, we could go over the last 20 years and name the guys that are superstars. The reason to me that you get that level is you do it every night. And it doesn't always mean 12 for 18 for 32 for Brunson. Maybe next game it's 12 for 27 to get his 32. But you're going to feel him the whole night. You're going to feel him the whole night. And so I think Jalen Brunson is a superstar. I'd put him in that category. It's every damn night. And that's why for Haliburton, he's closer than he was a year ago. But you can't have games where you do not impact the result at all and be called a superstar. No, man. Like if he last night goes, 2 for 16, 12 assists, couple turnovers. So doesn't have a great game, inefficient, gets to the line a few times, maybe makes a couple threes. He ends up with 15 points, 12 assists, 4 turnovers, but he took 18 shots. Man, I get it. That happens. You have off nights. I'm not saying when I say you do it every night, you have the same stat line every night. What I'm saying is you are felt and noticed, and your impact is there. And some nights you don't play well, and that hurts your team's ability to win, no doubt. But you're going to be talked about. Like you're part of the narrative of the game one way or another because you either played super aggressive and didn't play well, or you played super aggressive and you played great. It's not because, well, where was Haliburton last night? Barely noticed the guy. I'm sorry, man. There's another level to this thing, and he's not quite there yet. If he's going to have a game like that in a big spot. Now, he might bounce back completely in game 6 and be incredible. It's great. That still doesn't erase game 5 because that wasn't a bad night. It was like he literally wasn't there. And it's just very bizarre to me that you can play that well in game 4 and be that and disappear to that extent in game 5. I just, it's really a mystery to me.
It is a mystery, man. And it was all of them. I mean, the Pacers just had a struggle game. Siakam kind of had a back and forth with the reporter asking him about it. It's like, yeah, man, and it happens. It's not an excuse, but it does happen. I think the Pacers know, and now they head back to Indiana. Yeah. And here's what somebody said this on a different pod this morning, but I thought it was a good point. The Pacers had a Cinderella run last year. I don't know how much pressure was on them last year at any point in the playoffs because it was kind of like the first time you're making a run, everything feels good. This year's the repeat. But game 6 to me feels like the most pressure they will feel in any game. I know they faced elimination last year, but again, you kind of felt like it was found money. Tomorrow is a big pressure game because if you lose and have to go back to New York, you might all summer feel like you lost your best opportunity to get to the finals. So that's the thing I'm curious about. We have not seen the Pacers. They're a joyful team. They're always having fun the way they play. Tomorrow is going to be serious, and I'm very curious what you think about them facing pressure.
I like that point a lot. I think I agree with a lot of what you're saying because even last year, even though they got to a point, they were in a game 7 where anybody can win that game. You got to be honest about what happened in the playoffs. Milwaukee was banged up. You didn't face Giannis. The Knicks could barely walk by the end of that series. So you're right. It was almost like there's no pressure. No one expected us to be here. This is a little different because you're getting, first of all, a healthy Knicks team. The top 2 teams are out of the equation. So you got home court advantage by what you did in the first 2 games of this series. You stole, actually the first game, you stole home court. So now you have home court advantage and the top 2 seeds are gone. This is your path, man. This is it. And they know there is more pressure because this time this Knicks team is healthy and it's in front of your home crowd and you've got a chance to go to the NBA Finals for the first time in 25 years. So you're right. There's going to be a whole nother level of anxiety in that building. And we are all curious to see how they respond to that, how they handle it. I think one thing you're going to notice, I think you're going to see a big adjustment out of them defensively. They're not going to get beat that many times off the dribble to the rim. because that you can't win games if you give up that much dribble penetration that ends with shots at the rim. You've got to step in, kick out, force the Knicks to take 35, 43s in the game. That should be their approach. In a pressure-packed game, you want guys to have to take jump shots. And that will lead to more freedom of movement offensively if they can do that.
Well, any other final thoughts here? I mean, the one thing is just the turnovers, and I do think all this stuff is connected, so maybe we don't even need to discuss it, but two crazy stats. I mean, the 20 turnovers, okay, that's the most they've had, and then under 100 points for the first time this playoffs, and they only had 5 games the entire regular season where they didn't score 100 points, the Pacers. One of those was at Madison Square Garden, by the way. So one of those was also against the Knicks in the regular season. So anything you make of that going into this next one?
Look, I think I look at this game the other night, and it's pretty simple what it comes down to for me. You mentioned the turnovers, Adam. I think 20 turnovers is really significant. That's incredibly high number, man. That's 20 opportunities you didn't get to even shoot. So how many points would a good offensive team get out of that, right?
Yeah.
But the bigger number really is the points off turnovers, because if they're not converting the other way, even though it hurt you to turn the ball over because you're a good offensive team and you didn't get an attempt, relatively speaking, you're not paying the price if they're not converting. And actually, the Knicks gave up more points off their turnovers than the Pacers did. So they turned it over 20 times, only led to 15 points. That's a low number for 20 turnovers. The Knicks turned it over 15 times and gave up 20 points. So it shows you Indiana's very, very dangerous. I like Oklahoma City if you cough it up. Pacers, listen, here's the formula for the Pacers. You want to win the game, get to the finals on your home court? Number one, you got to control points in the paint. You cannot get gutted the way that you did. You got to understand the approach of the Knicks now. Be prepared for it. You got to have guys step in, slide in, be willing to give their bodies up on these hard drives, force kickouts, clearly take care of the ball. And then honestly, it's the motor. The motor is Tyrese Haliburton. When he plays like his hair's on fire, they're really tough to stop for any team, including Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City will have their biggest test if the Pacers get there and he plays like his hair's on fire every night. Yeah. Now they might not let him and jam him up and all that stuff. But you're right. But they'll have an answer for it because they're so good defensively. But that's the key to the whole thing. If Haliburton shows you in the first 6 minutes that he looks like he did in game 4, Pacers are going to be fine.
Yeah. All right. We have a poll, James. Is that what you're telling me? You have a poll here. Here are the results. Who's winning the series, Legs? Pacers or Knicks? The chat, 55% say the Knicks are winning the series after last night's game. Yeah. Does that surprise you?
Yeah. No, it doesn't, because that's what people do. I mean, and I don't know who's going to win the game. I when they got up 3-1, I'm like, Knicks aren't going to win 3 games in a row, because they hadn't, to me, proven they could contain them. Last night was the first time for a sustained stretch in a game they contained them. They had a stretch in game 1 of about 8 minutes when they took that big lead in the fourth quarter with Brunson out of the game. Their defense was incredible during that stretch. And they, to a certain extent, in the game that they won in Indiana, they in the fourth quarter mainly, when Indiana completely slowed down everything. Those are really the only 2 times until last night. So I don't know that they've got it all figured out, because, again, I think it's about their offense. That led to what they were able to do defensively. I don't know if their offense will be that good again in game 6. I don't know if they're going to be able to get all those points in the paint. And if they don't, are guys going to make enough jump shots? So I'm not convinced that, the Knicks figured this out. Now they got the Pacers all bottled up. A lot of people, I think, do think that after what they watched last night, because that was a very convincing win. There's no doubt. Incredibly impressive, both ends of the floor. And I think now people think, okay, Knicks got this thing all figured out. They got the recipe. Well, Indiana's going to have something to say about that. And Haliburton especially, man, he's got to be honest with himself and know that's one of the worst playoff performances of his career. So he's going to respond to that, and he'll be a lot better. Who wins? I don't know, but I'm not surprised that more people now jump to the Knicks side, because they think the Knicks have this team figured out now. They can guard them.
Well, I love when decisive games like this game 6 is obviously a huge one. I love when they happen on a Saturday night. It's just there's a different energy in any building, in any sport when you get a Saturday night. Everybody has all day to kind of prepare and come to the arena appropriately. So I'm excited. Tomorrow night, 6:00, or actually I should have 8:00 Eastern time, Knicks Pacers. That will likely be the best game of the entire
By the
season.
way, I would real quick, just a side note to this. I don't know if you caught this, man. Just a fun nugget. So did you see the stuff with Pat McAfee before the game in game 4?
I know a lot of people hated this stuff. I like it. I like the little, like, it wasn't too distracting.
I mean, I didn't care. I didn't care one way or another. It doesn't bother me. What was funny to me was one, Ben Stiller hilariously went on a talk show the next day and he was like, I don't know who that was. And like, was he a holder? Was he a field goal kicker? They're like, no, he was a punter. So they got into it. He's like, man, kind of caught me off guard because I thought he was friends with Chalamet, and I'm sitting with Chalamet, and I was like, oh, there's your boy. And then the next thing you know, he's telling everybody to, like, throw garbage at us. He's like, so I was a little bit caught off guard by that. But no, the best part was, did you see what John Cougar Mellencamp said?
I did not.
Okay. So
I only followed this story so closely.
No, this is great, man. So John Cougar Mellencamp, an Indianapolis boy or Indiana boy, he was at game 4. I didn't even know he liked the NBA. It's the first time I've ever heard his name associated with an NBA game. Right. And I'm a fan actually of his music, but he came out after and said, man, I was really disappointed with Pat McAfee doing that because that's not Hoosier hospitality, man. That's not who we are. And I thought I was a little embarrassed by that for our fan base, whatever. So he took the kinder, gentler approach in calling out McAfee for like going in on the celebrities that flew out to Indiana. I just thought the whole thing was hilarious. And Stiller, by the way, challenged McAfee to go to New York for game 5. Was he there last night? I didn't notice. Okay. So I don't think he went. I'm assuming he'll be there tomorrow night, and we'll see if that, there's another chapter to the Pat McAfee versus New York Knicks celebrity fan base. It's going to be awesome.
I think these things are fun, man. And like even McAfee doing it, he's a wrestling heel. He's not really calling these guys out. He's just getting the crowd hyped. I like it. In Denver, we had 1994, John Elway. If you remember, that was the Cinderella run from Mutombo, George Karl against George Karl's Sonics, where they upset him. He came out and says, "Let's get ready to Mutombo," which to me is an all-time corny but hilarious line.
All right, let me ask you one last question real quick before we get off this topic. I know you got a couple other things. The four stars in the series, rank them in order of most likely to step up big in game 6.
Man, I love that. That's a great question. I'm going to go Haliburton number 1. I'm going to go Haliburton number 1. I'm going to go Brunson number 2, Siakam 3, Cat 4. But honestly, any order you could talk me into.
If that's the case, you're giving the Pacers the 1 and 3 on that list. That's a good sign for them.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, I'm taking Pacers to close this thing out. I think last game, credit the Knicks. They did what they needed to do. Now this next one's going to be a dogfight, I think. And it should be, like I said, the best game of the entire series. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, we're going to just do some quick hitters. Probably a little bit of a shorter show today, but I wanted to ask about organizational questions within the NBA as a lot of teams head to their offseason and we start thinking about GMs and coaches and different things. I want to ask Legs a couple questions on the other side. First, Vivid Seats. The NBA playoffs are heating up, but there's no better time to experience the intensity in person, whether you're trying to catch your favorite team live or just looking for the best deals on live event tickets. Let us tell you about our friends at Vivid Seats. Vivid Seats is the best place to get your tickets for any game or show. They have the best selection of seats and 100% buyer guarantee, and they're the only ticket marketplace that rewards you for every purchase. For a limited time, our listeners could use promo code ALLNBA30 to receive $30 off their first Vivid Seats purchase of $300 or more. Just click the link in the show notes or download the Vivid Seats app and use promo code ALLNBA30 for $30 off your first purchase of $300 or more. And that's not all. For the remainder of the NBA playoffs, Vivid Seats is giving away free tickets every week. Check out the exclusive Game Center in the Vivid Seats app and play NBA Playoff Pick for your chance to win. When it comes to playoff hoops, being there is all that matters, so experience it live with Vivid Seats. Also want to tell you guys about Monarch Money. Finances can be messy and confusing. Monarch Money acts like your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control so you can stop earning and start growing. It's more than your average budgeting app. Monarch Money is a complete financial command center for your accounts, investments, and goals. So it helps you set a budget, but it also helps you to track your investments, especially if you have multiple investments. It can be hard to track. It'll help you out with that. Don't manage your money. Start building wealth with 50% off your first year exclusively for our listeners. Get control of your overall finances with Monarch Money. Use the code ALLNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. You can also click on the description in the show. It'll have a link right there to their website. That's 50% off for your first year at Monarch Money when you use the code ALLNBA. All right, back here, final segment of the week on the All NBA show. Make sure you're subscribed so you're always getting Legler's best takes throughout the week as we head into the finals, the last round of the NBA playoffs. But the Nuggets just let go of a bunch of assistants. You know, they hire a new coach, David Adelman, and they're getting ready. He's getting ready to assemble his own staff. And I had a couple questions for you, being someone who has been around the NBA, played in the league, and has better insight into this. What makes a good assistant coach? We all think about the head coach. This is what the head coach does. You need to have this. But what in your experience makes for good assistant coaches?
The very first thing is to be a guy that is very loyal to the head coach, but also a guy that you can vent to as a player, a guy that you can talk to off the record and trust. If you're ticked off, or you're mad, or you have a suggestion, or whatever it may be in the moment, and that could be a star player down to the 17th guy in the roster. But at the same time, make it clear that you're not undermining the head coach. That's a hard thing to pull off. And I've seen both. I saw both of those types of things in my career, where sometimes you feel like you're venting to a guy that kind of is like, yeah, man, I hear you. Like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. And that's not a healthy situation. But then there's also, I've been in situations where you didn't feel like you could talk to some of the assistant coaches because they were too much like connected to the head coach. So I think that's first. You've got to be somebody that can walk both lines, man, that you're there, you're professional, you support the head coach up until the day he's gone. You still have to come off like you're supporting him, but at the same time being empathetic to what players are trying to talk to you about and understanding it, and them knowing that they can trust you, that it stays there, that it's not going to be used against you. It's not going to affect your minutes, the rotation, or whatever it may be. There's no repercussions for it. Then that's a hard thing to be able to do. But I think for me, that's one of the number one things that a good assistant coach does.
Yeah. And nowadays there's so many of them. I just wonder how fragmented those responsibilities get as well. I mean, obviously you've always had player development and you have this or that, but I know at least around Denver, guys have somewhat specialized jobs when it comes to the game or this or that. And that part is what I think is so interesting. And I'm always curious in how people build their staffs. There's no limit. There's no number that says it has to be this guy, this many guys or that many guys. It's almost like you're building an army, and what roles do we need to be accomplished?
I think, well, you know, I know what a head coach is looking for first and foremost, guys that are absolutely 100% unconditional loyalty to him.
Yeah.
And guys he likes being around, man. They're fun. You think about how much time you spend together. Certainly in that role, more time than you do your own family. So there's gotta be guys that you want to laugh with, to have a beer with, right? And enjoy your time with and feel comfortable around, have things in common with. So I think that's actually a lot of times the first thing that guys will gravitate toward when they get a job. Like those first couple guys sitting next to them, they've got connections that go way back. And then as you start to get, and it's funny, as I say further in the bench, you know, when I played, Adam, like literally there were three coaches. And that's it. There was a second row. There was nobody beyond the third coach even in the suit. It was those four guys or whatever it was. And the stuff that they had to do, my goodness, they had to work us out before the game. Each of those guys, they had to do all the scouting work. They had to do all of the film work and prep. They had to do in-game tracking of stuff, in-game suggestions. One guy was helping with the offense, one with the defense, and still being out there in sweats before the game, getting a sweat, working us all out. Now I don't even know how many people are on these staffs. I mean, I literally, you can't even count them all. And so it is so specialized. And so that's good for them. It's good that teams spend that kind of money on it. And as a result, you are much more specialized in what you're doing in some regards, even specialized with like the players that you're specifically working with. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? For development or pregame routine or whatever it may be. And then they get these very, very specific roles during the game. It wasn't like that when I played. The guys they wore a lot of hats, man, to be on that bench. So now I think what happens is the head coach, the first two guys are like, those are my boys. I got my boys here, man. I'm comfortable. I know they got my back. We're going to have some fun. We travel a lot together. I need to enjoy my time with them. And now you can start to bring in guys maybe you don't know as well, but you've heard great things about, or they bring something very specific schematically or from a prep standpoint or player development. And because you're going to have 10 of those guys. So, yeah, it doesn't matter if I know those guys all that well, because these two guys next to me, they're my boys.
Right, right. We were laughing. A fan from my other show, a fan of that show, bought a courtside ticket for me for the Nuggets game, one game this year. And we were laughing because there's so many assistants and so many extra people. Deron Holmes, who's basically a redshirt rookie, was seated behind us. Like he was behind me. That's how many people there are. That's not even enough room for
man.
them.
That's incredible. It's funny. I tell people this too. Like the number of people on just the like strength conditioning
Yeah,
and player development staff. We had one guy,
yeah,
and like
yeah,
so like I'll never forget this. Like this guy, his name was Dennis Householder in Washington, and he would have to be out there. Like let's say you had an injury, so you weren't practicing, so you were back in doing the other stuff, the non-contact stuff back in the facility training room, whatever. So he'd be out there. He'd have to stretch all those guys before practice. Stretch them out. He'd give massages to players if he had to. He'd tape ankles with the trainer, like help. And then as soon as practice would start, he'd come back into the training facility and he would be working the guys out that aren't playing right now because they have an injury or something, right? And then at the same time, if there's an issue out there, he'd have to run out there like one dude. And I think now I look at like what the staff that just the trainers have. The staff that the player development guys have, it's incredible. And like I said, good for them, man. It's created opportunities in the league for young people to get jobs and work their way up. The league teams are willing to spend it. The coaches seems like there's a limitless amount of money to devote to it. Anytime they want to add another guy, they just add another guy. Like nobody fights it. Okay, you need that, we'll get it to you. So it's really incredible the way that component of it has changed. I look over there some nights and I can't believe the number of people sitting there in the same color quarter zip. It's incredible.
Would you ever know the name Chopper Travellini? I think he was gone by the time you arrived in Denver, but he was Doug Moe's trainer and was kind of also the assistant drinking buddy. He was jack of all trades, and that's what it was. There was three guys on the bench.
Sounds like some sort of like a high wire act at the circus. Like you're about to go watch a dude, you know what I mean? Like, hey, Chopper Travellini's you show tonight, 7 p.m., in the big top. Like Chopper
Doug Moe and Chopper Travellini would have been everyone's favorite coach if they were around today, man. Two jokers. I got another one for you. What should a GM's relationship be with the players? How close or how distant do you think a general manager or president of basketball operations should be to his team?
Man, I think somewhere in the middle. I mean, I don't think you can have a guy that's just, it constantly detached. He's up in the club box every night making these decisions. He doesn't get to know you as a person, but at the same time, you can't get too friendly, right? You can't be doing that stuff. There's been stuff over the years where you have GMs are going on vacation with guys and stuff. You can't do that either. I don't think. Somewhere in the middle, you've got to have a personal relationship with them so they know you care about them as a human being, get to know them. You know their spouse's name, their girlfriend's name, their children's names. Like, that kind of stuff about them. Instead of just knowing their agent, because some guys approach it that way. I think somewhere in the middle is probably the best place to walk.
Some GMs are awfully close to their team, and I do think it can cloud their vision, their ability to kind of make tough choices. So, but then at the same time, if you're known as a heartless guy, players maybe view the organization that way, and the heart's not in it. Here's my last one. There's a lot of teams right now with a lot of young guys on the roster contributing. And I don't mean like Victor Wembanyama's young. Yeah, he's a superstar. He's the number one pick. I just mean, hey, we're going to fill out our roster with young guys. In your opinion, what is out of a 15-man roster, what is a healthy number of players? We'll say 3-4 years or less experience in the NBA, going into their third or fourth year, but not a lot of experience. What's a healthy number out of 15 roster spots for a team to carry?
Well, let's go with the first 12 first. Okay, the guys that are suiting up every night. I think probably the right ratio to that is probably somewhere, I'd say 5-6 guys that have been around a bit. Because you always want to make sure you got the younger, fresher legs that hopefully if you're developing them, you can turn it into something great. If that's the case. You have too many guys like that, not enough young talent. At some point, that cupboard's going to run dry. If you have too many young guys, not enough veteran presence, then it could stall the process because there's not enough leadership in the locker room, examples to be set, work ethic to be shown, leadership, all of that stuff. So that's what I think the race should be for that. And then those other 3 guys, I think one of those 3 that aren't really suiting up every night, one of those 3 should be there specifically for the reasons I just mentioned. And then 2 guys.
Veteran.
Yeah. And then 2 guys that are really young, that, you're just every day you're working those guys to death, trying to see what's there because you saw some potential in them. But one of them should be also just that voice that's in street clothes, but shows up the next day and he's there when you get there as a young player. The guy's already lifting weights and he hasn't suited up in a month. But look at this guy. That's really important to have that too in that role.
I like that. I mean, today with the modern CBA, everybody needs these cheap contracts. So either vet minimums or it's, just a bunch of young guys because those guys are going to be on young deals. But to your point, and like Indiana's had a lot of success. You look at their roster, all young guys, minus Siakam, Turner, 1 or 2 others. It's a bunch of young, TJ McConnell. They're just counting on a bunch of young guys, and that might be the new norm, but you can overdo it. When you rely on 4 or 5 guys in your every night rotation that are all inexperienced, your team becomes an inexperienced team.
Yeah, and you know what? What's funny about it too, Adam, is like you look at this makeup of this team and go back to the last few years. You wouldn't think this was going to be a team Rick Carlisle was going to be able to connect with, right? Rick Carlisle, who'd won a championship, but a veteran-laden team. And you feel like a guy like that that's been around, that's a very, he's changed dramatically, like the way he views the game offensively and what he thinks is good basketball. And it's to his credit, man. You adapt to the rules, the skill level, the way guys want to play. You adapt to that. And he's done it. But like you would think a guy like that's been around a long time would be much more suited to a veteran-laden team that's like couldn't quite get there. And now they're making a coaching change and you're going to come in and kind of get them over the hump. So I give him credit because the style is totally different than what he probably thought the game should look like 15 years ago. He's got a much younger roster, and yet he is squeezing every single drop out of this team. It's 2 years in a row, conference finals. And this year, you're talking about now a chance on your home court to get to the NBA finals with this group. I mean, it's incredible. Like I said to somebody the other night, he wins this somehow. And I know they're not going to be favored. Oklahoma City is going to be a prohibitive favorite. I mean, it's going to be, I don't even know, man, like what the numbers on that look like if they play Indiana. But if he somehow were to win against Oklahoma City, immediately this guy gets thrust into one of the greatest coaches to ever do it. Because think about his other title. It was against this team that everybody said was unbeatable.
That's right. That Mavs run.
Took down that Heat team. Took them down with those guys. And then now you're going to go do it with a young team against a team that you are significant underdog against. Man, that would be a story. But look, let's not get there first. Let's see who wins this series. The Knicks very much alive. They were impressive last night, man. There's nothing they really could have done better in that game. And I think that's what is scary to Indiana a little bit, as now you changed venues, is the Knicks feel great about where they are relative to this team now and playing against them on both ends. Let's see what Indiana has in store.
Well, cue that outro music, James. Saturday night should be a great one. That's why it's going to be so exciting, as it does feel like a must win, obviously for the Knicks, but a must win for the Pacers in many ways as well. We did have one super chat here, and I know it's a confusing one. James, what do you got? Jay Money says, producer James from way downtown, Jay Money asked if James could guess what his favorite team was, and he guessed the Toronto Raptors, and he was right. Good job, James. We'll take your $10.
It took a couple tries, but I got there. Thanks, guys.
It only took him 30 tries, but he got it.
28.
Finally
28.
on Raptors. It's always fun when you guys hop in the chat and join the conversation. So make sure if you enjoy this show, make sure you're subscribed and you can tune in live. We're at different times all the time because Legs is a busy man. He's traveling all over the country, but we always get 4 shows in a week. We're going to have 4 shows next week. Everybody enjoy your weekend. Circle back on Monday.
All city like the mayor.